Thailand's constitutional court has ruled that 3 protest leaders are guilty of attempting to overthrow the monarchy. All 3 had been charged after calling for reform of the royal institution. The case was brought against the activists last year after they made the call during protests against the government. By doing so, they broke a long-held taboo of publicly criticizing the monarchy. The activists denied any wrongdoing. And for more on this, Saksith Soyasambat joins us from Bangkok. Saksith, the verdict will set a precedent for more criminal charges against activists.
It will, Steve, and it already has. The verdict that was brought down by the Constitutional Court basically equating the calls by Thai pro-democracy activists for reforms of the powerful and influential monarchy, equating it to calls for overthrow of the constitutional monarchy, seeing it as a violation of Article 49 of the Constitution of 2017, which was written under a military government, by the way. Yeah, that is definitely going to send shockwaves in many parts of Thailand and into the political discourse here. While the Constitution Court itself cannot penalize or convict individuals unless they are politicians, it does definitely set legal precedents for not only new cases that can be brought forward against the Thai activists and the protesters, but also on the many ongoing cases that are already in process because of the numerous political protests that we have seen over the past 1.5 years. Many of these activists also already still in pre-trial detention, many of them being charged for defamation of the monarchy, a crime that can be punished with up to 15 years in prison, with sedation. And now, seemingly also, it could even amount to treason, and that is where the death penalty can be applied to. So that is definitely going to send shockwaves. And the person who petitioned the court to look into this, he actually said after the verdict that he will use this verdict as a legal precedent to seek the dissolution of the opposition Move Forward party. This party is, for Thai standards, a very liberal progressive party that has called for reforms of the lèse majesté law, and apparently, seemingly so, using this legal precedence, calling for reform of a law that criminalizes criticism of the monarchy is apparently enough to equate that with overthrowing the constitutional monarchy here.
Well, given the seriousness that this is being dealt with, Saksith, are protests against the government expected to continue in the aftermath of this decision?
It is very likely that the protesters are not going to be very happy with it, to say the least. Protests have been ongoing, yes, but in a less frequency, less frequent than we have seen before, especially a year ago. And not only because it has lost some momentum, partly because, as I said before, these activists are now, many of them are now in pre-trial detention, but it does give them more ammunition. It definitely does give them more arguments saying that this country and then the political system, including the judiciary, is not dealing very fairly with the protesters as well. Nevertheless, this verdict has shifted the goalposts of the already very narrow limits of free political speech. But what it also has to be kept in mind is that the verdict is also showing that, the protesters themselves have already moved the goalposts themselves in what can be talked about the monarchy, and people are and have been talking about the monarchy and have been talking about the reforms of the monarchy and the political system with less fear. So Pandora's box has already been opened, and the verdict today is changing very little to that.
All right, many thanks for the update. Saksith Soyasambat speaking to us from Bangkok.